and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, we are joined by host of Respectfully Xavier at PragerU, Xaviaer DuRousseau, as well as Director of Outreach for PragerU Kids, Jill Simonian. I feel like I really struck gold today with this duo. Thank you both for joining me. I think the world of both of you, and you guys have both been such incredible voices for sanity and common sense and all the things that we've all looked forward to that are now starting to happen thanks to Donald Trump being back in the White House. So thank you both. This has been a heck of a week. And I want to get to all the things that have happened in Donald Trump's first week in office. But I'm going to start out there in California because both of you guys are out in California. You both live there. And I was so struck on Friday watching my father-in-law give this press conference, do this round table with all different people, with Karen Bass, with people just from different communities there in California, people who've lost everything. I think one of the people who stood up was like a principal or something of a school. It was everybody. And they were all just talking to him and they were throwing around ideas. I was watching as Donald Trump was schooling these people. And Karen Bass is saying things like, yeah, maybe in a week, Jill, we'll let people back in their homes. And he's like, a week? A week is too long. They need to get back in there tonight. As I'm watching this, I was just thinking, if I were a person in California who did not vote for Donald Trump, who maybe felt some animosity towards him and had bought into the bad bill of goods that they'd been sold about Donald Trump, I would look at him coming out there and the hope that he was bringing with him and actually feel for the first time, maybe a little bit of hope, maybe a little bit of, oh, my future will be okay. It's not all just a complete and total disaster. What's the vibe, Jill, in California after the visit from President Donald Trump?
The vibe is, well, first of all, Lara, I'll tell you, I have personally known close to 15 families who lost everything, their home, everything. I mean, moms, dads, kids, that everything is gone. So it has been devastating. It has been so challenging here. People at our school, our church, it has been absolutely gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching, but there is now hope, because when the President of the United States comes to your community and, like you said, schools the leaders, and I use that in very loose quotation marks, leaders who have been in charge to keep you safe, telling them, listen, you've been negligent. What are you doing? Let's get these people help. Let's get these people back on their feet. Let's give them something so that they can move forward with their lives. It's been everything. And there's been a lot of people who I have personally known who, like you said, weren't necessarily fans of President Trump before, but they're not going to like to admit it, but they're now waking up and realizing, oh, wait a second, our infrastructure here in California was not taken care of. And President Trump is calling it out. And there's so much red tape that is preventing these families from going in and, beginning the process of restarting their lives. President Trump is calling it out. He's trying to pave a path forward for so many people, and it is giving us hope.
Oh, well, I love to hear that. Xavier, you have $50 million that was allotted to fighting against Trump policies by the state of California. We all heard about that, of course, and no water for, firefighting or the like, completely ridiculous. But after Donald Trump's visit there, it was the first time for some people in 2 weeks since they lost everything, since their homes burned to the ground and they have nothing to show for their life, that they were able to actually go back to their property. What's your take on the Trump visit, how it feels in California, and what's gone on since he visited there on Friday?
Wow. So much to unpack there, because let me just say this. I cannot emphasize enough the gratitude that the people of Los Angeles have for President Trump coming to visit here and making us feel seen, making us feel like we have a president that actually cares about us. Like you said, California has been a state that has went out of their way to reject everything and all things Trump, and yet still the president came to California, to Los Angeles, to stand in solidarity with people who may not have even supported his election, because that's what unity looks like. That's what leadership looks like, stepping up for all Americans regardless of differences. So I'm so grateful that he came here and gave these people hope and just shut down so many of the idiotic mindsets of the likes of Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. Because what do you mean we don't have water near the Pacific Palisades? Like, that is just something that is so mind-blowing to me, something that is just beyond a lack of preparation. That is a lack of just intelligence. That is just a complete incompetence personified. We're so focused on making a speedy rail system so that we can go from LA to San Francisco. Well, how about we first start with protecting the city of Los Angeles, a city that is obviously prone to wildfires? Why not put in the policies that we need to make sure that we have new dams, making sure the reservoir isn't empty? You know, we have doubled in population in the last 40 years, and yet we still did not do anything to build dams or be prepared for a situation like this. So having President Trump come here and stand on business was absolutely incredible to witness. And I'm seeing more and more MAGA hats every time I walk through Beverly Hills in West Hollywood. I am not kidding. Every time I go on a hike, if I'm walking down the street, I'm seeing people either selling MAGA hats, wearing MAGA hats, or if they want to be subtle and low key about it, they'll have a bedazzled 47 on their hat. And that is where we are moving as a city, because we have been failed by our leadership, so much so that even the likes of Khloe Kardashian is calling it out. When the Kardashians are speaking up on politics, that's when you know that the left has really failed at their job.
Oh, they failed epically. There's no doubt about it. The thing that impressed me the most, and that I hope people are really taking in and understanding, is that this wasn't a political trip for Donald Trump, right? He's not running for president again. That's it. He's done. Despite what the lunatics out there will say, he's not seeking a third term in office, obviously. This is it. He went out to California. And he also started by landing first in North Carolina, which I want to get to, because he felt it was the right thing to do, because these are American citizens. And yeah, he didn't win the state of California. He got a substantially better outcome than he did previously, and that, you know, any Republican has in recent elections. But you know what? He went out there because these are our fellow Americans and people need help and no one is helping them. And that's his role as president of the United States, as commander in chief. It's to go to these places. It's to draw attention. It's to fix these problems that obviously the leadership they have epically failed at. He landed first in North Carolina, as I mentioned, Jill. And obviously this one's personal for me. This is my home state. And the poor people in North Carolina, in the western part of the state, really felt like they were just forgotten about. You know, you had Hurricane Helene come through. It caused epic devastation, wreaked havoc on the entire, you know, western part of North Carolina. And they really felt like they were just completely discarded and forgotten about. People, of course, remember that FEMA was giving $750 only to people who, you know, who actually, they said, deserved it, who had to go through an application process. And meanwhile, of course, we're paying exorbitant amounts of money to the southern border crisis and to rehoming illegal immigrants here. Donald Trump, when he went there, though, he went to give people hope, but he also went to talk about FEMA a little bit. And this is the one that I found very interesting. He was talking about potentially just completely scrapping FEMA altogether and starting fresh. It says here, the president doubled and tripled down, telling a roundtable of federal and local officials that he would be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, that FEMA's not good, he said. He wants to instead provide federal funds directly to the states to deal with these natural disasters, to situations like this, because FEMA, Jill, I think a lot of people look at what they did in North Carolina and they say, this was also an epic failure. Telling people who work for FEMA not to go to homes of folks who had Trump signs in the front, not being able to actually give people the resources they needed in real dire situations. That doesn't sound like anything I want my tax dollars going to. What do you think about Donald Trump saying maybe we just scrap FEMA altogether?
Well, you know, first and foremost, I'm a regular mom, so I can't say I'm an expert on how FEMA works. And, you know, thank you, God, that I have not had to deal directly with FEMA, you know, especially in these last few weeks here in Southern California regarding the wildfires or any other situation for that matter. But I'll tell you this, how refreshing is it? Just, you know, regular citizen here, how refreshing is it to look at a leader who is essentially acting like a CEO who inherited a failing company.
Yeah.
And I say that with the utmost love and respect for our country, for America, for this most blessed nation that we are here living in and trying to make better every single day. But the last few years, America has experienced epic failures across every single department on all fronts. Whether you're talking about FEMA, whether you're talking about the Department of Education, whether you're talking about, immigration, everything. And President Trump is acting as a CEO who has to clean up this failing corporation. And isn't that what we want to do united as Americans? Yeah, the cuts might be hard. Yeah, it might be different. It might be, some might say, oh, this is radical, but sometimes you need that type of leadership and vision and change to get to a better place for where you need to be. And I see him that, he's using his experience to do just that.
Yeah, you need the dad energy, Xavier, is what I feel like. And that's what I feel like that's what we're feeling. And that's what we're experiencing right now. It's almost like, when you've had a substitute teacher or something in class for too long and everybody's cutting up and nobody's respecting the teacher. And then the real teacher shows up and people are like, oh, every kid understands that and they get in line. That's what's going on right now. And I'll give you a great example of it. Colombia did not want to accept planes full of, illegal immigrants here to America, folks who are from Colombia. A lot of these people were criminals. That's the first roundup that Donald Trump wants to get out of this country. You've got murderers, you've got rapists, you have sexual assaulters. These are people we don't want here in this country. Donald Trump is rounding them up, 2,000 already, out of this country, and he sent them on a plane down to Colombia. Now, the Colombian president originally said, nah, I don't know if we want to have them here, so we're not going to accept the plane. So what does Donald Trump do? While he's on the golf course, he gets on Truth Social, Xavier, and he's like, guess what? You think that's cute? Here, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to apply tariffs. We're going to completely wreak havoc on your economy. If this is the game you want to play, no imports to the United States, forget it. And I think it's within an hour, the Colombian president was like, yeah, actually, we will take those planes. And I'll actually send my presidential plane to pick more people up. That's what people wanted when they voted for Donald Trump for a second term in office. And he's delivering. Xavier, 1 week he's been in the White House. This is the kind of stuff that we had hoped we would see. But a week in, I got to be honest, even I am impressed with what I've seen out of the Trump White House.
Wow. It is the definition of F around and find out.
That meme was everything too. I reposted it.
That is the summary of this all because this is what strong leadership looks like again, where this country, Colombia, is trying to act funny, so Donald Trump decides to act hilarious. It's like, okay, we can all play these little reindeer games if you want to, and now your economy is going to be destroyed because you're jeopardizing the safety of the people in my nation. So President Trump just slammed down his foot while on the golf course. That is just like the cherry on top of this whole situation being utterly iconic, is the fact that while on the golf course, he had the time and the energy to completely shut down all of these games. And you know what? Every other country that Trump is going to be looking at in the near future, they're going to be looking like, well, we don't want these tariffs. We don't want this situation to happen. We don't want our visas revoked. So when he starts making some demands, we're going to acquiesce because at the end of the day, America is the global power, is the global leader. And these countries need to stop screwing us over. These 3-letter and 4-letter agencies need to stop screwing over the American people. All of these countries, all of these organizations within our nation are being finally examined and held accountable because that's what it takes for the American people to be protected again, is for us to start actually following suit with all of the actions that have been long overdue. With all the things that have happened just in the last week, my mind is blown too, which I knew that all of this was going to happen quickly, but I didn't realize that the day of the inauguration, President Trump was going to be signing executive orders for hours, making sure that from day one, our country is unrecognizable, but in the best way possible. We are finally restoring to the greatness that our country deserves to be.
Let's talk about some of the promises kept. You remember in 2017, Jill, we had the phrase promises made, promises kept. It's happening again. We're back at it. And the promises kept thus far, release of the JFK, RFK, and MLK assassination files, ending DEI in federal government. Thank God our taxpayer dollars are not going to that anymore. January 6th pardons, which he said he would do. And a lot of people were like, I don't know. Well, Donald Trump, yep, he did it. Ending Biden's open border policies. We just talked about that. He rescinded 78 of Biden's executive actions on day one to protect our southern border, ended the electric vehicle mandate. And I think one of the remarkable things that we've also seen happen is he talked throughout the course of the election about how he wanted to get the Ukraine-Russia conflict solved. He wanted the war to end. And he always says there's so many people who are dying unnecessarily every day. These soldiers, these are young kids. They should never be out there. They're dying every day. We want to put an end to it. He says he wants to meet Putin immediately to talk about ending the war. And in his speech to WEF, he called on the Saudi-led OPEC cartel to reduce the cost of oil, cutting off Russia's income so it could no longer afford to continue the war. He says if the price of oil came down for them, they're not going to have the funding to continue this war. If I may, let's go back for a second to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's first day in the White House. What is it they did? Their first executive order, shutting down the Keystone XL pipeline. It rendered America obviously no longer energy independent. We were now dependent on other countries for our oil, but it also drove the cost of the Russian oil up. It enriched people like Vladimir Putin and Russia and allowed them the funding to start that war. It enriched Iran, who had the funding to back Hamas and Hezbollah and all of these, proxies around the Middle East to start that conflict. One could argue, had that never happened, you may not have seen this war. But Donald Trump, here he is, coming in hot and saying, I want to meet with Putin. And a lot of people in the past, of course, have criticized him whenever he says he wants to meet with Vladimir Putin or he says anything nice about him. I believe he's going to meet with Vladimir Putin, and I believe we're probably going to see an end to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. For years, customers have been asking if MyPillow sells cross necklaces like the one Mike Lindell proudly wears every day. Well, guess what? You're in luck. They are excited to announce that Mike has partnered with a jeweler right here in the USA to create beautiful sterling silver My Crosses. You can save 30% today using promo code TRUMP at mypillow.com and click on the radio podcast square or call 800-624-3945 and be sure to use promo code TRUMP. You can choose from the women's or men's style and make sure you do it soon because this amazing offer won't last long. Just go to mypillow.com and click on the radio podcast square or call 800-624-3945 and use promo code TRUMP.
I'm so hopeful. I'm so hopeful. And again, a fearless trailblazer. Fearless trailblazer. All the parents who were so scared about Donald Trump being elected to the presidency this time around again, I look at those parents now and I say, this is someone who is fearlessly trying to protect our country, our interests, our productivity. This is someone who we want. And I hope that people's eyes are really being opened up. I mean, these are the types of ideals that as a mom, I teach my children. Here at PragerU Kids, we try and teach the youngest learners what it means that your actions have consequences and that you need to be honest in saying what you're going to do. If you make a promise, you keep it. These are all values that are universal. And President Trump is forging ahead as someone who is completely fearless with a vision and a direction to put our country first. And I am so thankful and so hopeful.
Yeah, Xavier, I think that for a lot of people, maybe they're already starting to feel it. And kind of we talked about this at the beginning of the show, and we're talking about the wildfires out there in California. But I think there are a lot of people who were sold this crazy idea of Donald Trump. He's going to put, biracial couples in internment camps and gay and lesbians in internment camps, all these crazy things that they were throwing out there, just anything they could get to stick about Donald Trump. Of course, here we are. Obviously, all of that was just ridiculous and insane, but he's actually doing things that he said he would do. And when it starts to benefit the American people, I really feel like there are going to be a lot of people, even the ones who said that they don't like Donald Trump, they didn't vote for him in 3 elections, who really are going to come out and say, you know what? I think he's probably a good thing for this country. And I always say, I feel like when he leaves the White House, he will have one of the highest approval ratings of any modern president. And it starts with things like this. Look, if he gets the Ukraine-Russia conflict solved, you've already seen hostages released from Gaza, obviously. Thank God that's starting to happen now. Thank you, Donald Trump, for that. Once all of these things start to happen, Xavier, how do people argue against good things happening for this country and the world?
Anyone who's having an honest conversation about it, they're seeing that all the necessary steps to healing our world are being taken very quickly. It's not even a slow step. It's very quick steps are already happening where action is showcasing or the reality of his actions are already coming along. So you're seeing what's happening in Russia. You're seeing that this is potentially going to be the end of the war over there. That's a beautiful thing. Seeing the hostages be brought home, that's a beautiful thing. And yet still you have people that are on the left, and you have some of these left-wing influencers especially try to continue to peddle this narrative that Donald Trump is going to be this dictator, but the action proves otherwise. For example, with the whole thing with getting rid of DEI and the federal government, you have people trying to say that that means he's revoking civil rights and that black people aren't going to get hired anymore and people are going to start being fired because of their skin color. Anyone who actually does even just the most simple Google search of what those executive orders actually means realizes, oh, that's not actually the case. It's that we're going to start rewarding, talent and merit and skill sets again, rather than just prioritizing diversity quotas in the federal government. So no, that's not going to happen. And it also showcases a lot of their own hypocrisy on the left when they try to continue peddling this narrative that Donald Trump is somehow destructive. Because to tell someone like me that I no longer have the opportunity to get a good job because DEI is gone, that is so insulting to the minority groups and to the marginalized communities that the left claims that they're the biggest protectors over. I'm a firm believer that I will never need to use my skin color in order to get a job or position because I know that I have the qualifications for that, just as so many successful Black people have. There are over 2 million Black millionaires in America. Black women are outpacing in so many different metrics when it comes to education. So do not tell us that we need DEI in order to be successful. This narrative that they've been strongholding for so long is crumbling apart in real time because of the actions that Donald Trump is taking. And again, anyone who is honest about what's happening in our country sees that the changes are positive for not only America, but for the rest of the world.
I love that you said that because I felt the same way about the folks on the left trying to shove a woman president down our throats with the idea, Jill, that we should, as women, want a woman to be president because we're women. And it's really actually very ridiculous and insulting. Yeah. As Xavier just said, I don't ever want a job based on the fact that I'm a woman. I only want that job if I'm the most qualified and the best person for that job. And I hope that's what we're going to start seeing happen. I feel like the whole narrative on this started to crumble. And I'm going to go back to when they started to say that it was discriminatory and racist to say that people needed to have photo IDs, right? And remember this, whenever that was the argument they were making, and there were a lot of people out there in the country who were like, wait a minute, you don't think I have the ability to get an ID because of the color of my skin? That in and of itself started making people talk. And then we had, Hillary Clinton, we've had Kamala Harris, and I feel like people are just done with it. And I think it's such a positive thing for our country to start being a meritocracy, start making sure that we are rewarding people who deserve it. That's how we get the best out of everyone. Am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, this is something that I literally was telling both of my daughters this last night. I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. And I told them, and I told them straight up, I said, listen, now that you're teenagers, you're going to go into high school pretty soon. I am buckling down here because it is time for you to work hard, and you better be working your butt off. I'm being very transparent here, Lara, with my personal life, but I think, I want to make a point. And I told them, I said, listen up, it's going to be harder for you. It is going to be harder because you are working hard, because people are going to be looking to your hard work. I go, you can't phone things in. You can't expect to coast. No one's going to say, oh, she's a nice girl. Go ahead and give her this or that or give her that opportunity. No, you're going to have to work for it, but you're going to be better for it. And that's the mentality that I try and give my own kids. And that's the mentality that we as Americans need to start giving ourselves. We need to start giving ourselves credit, no matter what our race, gender, sexual orientation, no matter what any of those things are.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Let's start giving ourselves credit that we deserve, that we, yes, can work hard and we can rise to the occasion. And it's going to make us better as a nation.
I agree with that. And by the way, just to piggyback off your whole kid story, I'll give you a story about my kid this weekend. So my son, who's 7 years old, had his first jujitsu competition. Both of my kids have had in jujitsu for a couple of years, but they've never really been tested because we've never done a real actual competition.
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, as a mom, like, to be honest, I'm like, oh, you never know what's going to happen. But you can't phone that in, as you just said. You can't fake it. You have to go out there on the mat, and you either, get somebody by submission, or you earn the points based on the certain moves that you do. And my son won his very first fight that he had, and I was very proud of him. And then he had a second one he won, but the third one he lost, and he was so devastated by it, crying, almost didn't want to go back out on the mat to shake hands with the other kid. But I was like, no, you have to get back out there. And this failure is a good thing, You're going to learn more from that than you ever would from the wins. And I love that he won, and he was very proud of himself. And now we've moved past the tears and the crying. But you can't fake it out there on the mat, and you can't fake it in the real world. And that's where we're coming back around to. Finally, let's actually get things back up and running as a country, and it'll be sustainable. You can't sustain the path that we were on. It was just like fake and phony, and like you can't do that. So that was my parenting moment. Really quickly,
I love it.
Before we go, COVID, we finally are hearing from the CIA, Xavier, that COVID, oh, wait for it, came from a lab. Is that possible that they're now acknowledging this? Why do you think all of a sudden they're coming out with this? And is it at all interesting to you that Dr. Fauci has been pardoned now that we hear this lab leak theory? He had some involvement with the whole Wuhan lab and the whole. What's your take on all that? Because it's an interesting timing.
First of all, to be so transparent and honest with you, I thought that this was already established. We're all on the same page information.
Yes.
I genuinely did not know that the CIA was still in denial that this came from a lab in Wuhan. That's how baffled I am that it is now 2025 and they're just now coming forward with this information. We all have to pretend to be shocked like we didn't already know. But, it's no coincidence that now that Fauci's being pardoned, they're starting to come to be honest about it, because they know that either they are forthcoming and start being honest about what they know and what they've been hiding. Otherwise, they're going to be dragged across the entire country and made an example of you've been lying for so long. And you know what? Honestly, I hope that still does happen. I hope that the CIA is exposed. Yeah. Everybody that's involved with hiding this information is exposed and publicly gets condemned. And honestly, I hope that as many of them as possible end up in a prison cell, because this whole ordeal of COVID murdered millions of Americans. So what do you mean that the CIA, our highest level of intelligence, was just withholding information about the truth of how millions of Americans died and lost everything? And there are still people who are trying to recover from the financial burden or the health burdens or et cetera that came from COVID-19. And we have not been told the truth about it to this very day. So when President Trump starts exposing all of these different files about the murders of, JFK and RFK and MLK, I very much hope right along with all of that comes the truth about what happened with COVID-19, because we all have our theories. And so far, almost every credible theory has been proven true. The CIA is just now acknowledging it, though.
Yeah, they say the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is 6 months, right? And so we were all called conspiracy theorists, Jill, when we were like, I don't know, the gain of function research. That's what Fauci's talking about and all this stuff. And it obviously, I think we're all on the same page with this. We all thought that was just common knowledge that it came from the Wuhan lab. But okay, whatever. The thing that I love now is that, as Xavier just said, we are getting the light shone in all these dark places. And it does start with the release of those files. I think we're going to learn a lot more about the origins of COVID. And I hope that China is held accountable, because if you notice, for 4 years, Joe Biden did nothing. He would have calls with Xi Jinping, no mention of COVID-19. And we were all like, when do we get answers on this? When is someone held accountable for this? We got nothing. I'll tell you, one of the other things Donald Trump just did, Jill, that I loved, is that any military personnel who was fired from their job because they refused to get the COVID vaccine, you're rehired thanks to Donald Trump being in the White House. That one couldn't have come soon enough. There are a lot of people who had their lives destroyed because they didn't want to have a vaccine. Will probably get taken down off of some sites right now because I used that word. But this is common sense, and this is the kind of stuff that I think people are just finally able to breathe for the first time, thanks to Donald Trump being back. I loved to see that especially.
Absolutely. And when that announcement was made about the military, I don't have anyone in my family that's currently serving in the military, but I have friends though, and when that announcement was made, I literally jumped off of my couch and screamed with so much joy, because that is the beginning of correcting so much of what went wrong. And I do want to add too, my husband is a surgeon who is in private practice, but also was employed at the time with a local children's hospital here in Los Angeles, because he would operate on young burn victims, horrible burn victims, children from the Middle East. And he was let go from his job because he refused to take an experimental vaccine. And I hope and I pray that every single person who was wronged by the lies that were imposed on us by our own government at that time is brought to light. I hope that everyone is given their back pay. I hope that everyone is given their dignity back. And I hope, most importantly, too, that all of these entities, from school boards to school districts to hospitals, I hope they issue apologies to everyone. And I'm really not one to demand apologies. I really hate doing that. But in this case, it's definitely warranted.
Yeah, well, we were all made to feel like that. Remember when they said to us, if you don't get the vaccine, then you are actually killing people. Remember, they tried to play. It was outrageous, the things that they were saying to people. But yes, I think the right things are going to start happening. We've already seen that motion in that direction. Just to wrap it up here, I think maybe my favorite thing of the week is that the media elites are whining now that they are exhausted. This was just 5 days into Trump's second term in office. Let's think about what they've had to go through, though, Xavier. Imagine you're somebody who works in the media and you're there at the White House and you're covering the Biden administration. And there's not a lot of movement, not a lot going on. Everything is very slow. They called a lid on things most days at like 11 a.m., I feel like. So you're working like 2 hours. I don't even know what they were working there. Biden's at Delaware at the beach all the time, riding his bike, and whenever he could stay on it, bless his heart, all the things, right? We know that he was wholly absent most of the time there. And then you get Donald Trump in there, and it is like lightning striking every day. They're saying that they're too tired, that they don't know if they can handle this. I hope, Xavier, they can't handle it. That's what I want to see. That's when I'll know we've achieved success.
You know what? I am so sorry to the mainstream media that you now have to do your job. I know your vacation during Sleepy Joe was enjoyable and you all got to be ambitiously lazy, but now it's time for you to start doing the work. And really, you're just writing about the work that another man is doing. So I hope that it's not too much for you to handle, but if it is, go ahead and quit. And that's why I love working with a group like PragerU or being a political influencer myself, because I'm never going to get tired on reporting on all these wins. All of the different times that I was reporting on Biden's losses, it's like that same energy, that same work ethic is going into President Trump's wins. So I love where we are as a society, where all of these mainstream outlets are being vocal about the fact that we do not like to do our job, because that's just another truth coming to light.
Yeah, I tell you who else is upset they got to work again, Jill. It's not just the media. It's folks who are federal employees who haven't been in the office at all. Yeah. And Donald Trump and Doge is saying, either come back or you're done. Bye. Like, we don't need you. Thanks for nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a return of work ethic.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
How
that's what
refreshing.
it is. Yeah, how refreshing. And I hope it trickles down to every corner of our society, our schools, our community. I hope it trickles down, and I really am hopeful that it will.
I think so. I'm just in general hopeful. I'm just and I'm honestly sending you guys all the well wishes out there in California. I know it's been hell that you guys have been through. I hope President Trump showing up and our First Lady Melania, who by the way was comforting people speaking in her home, her language of Slovenian, where she's from, where she grew up. Amazing things going on over the past week. I just feel so lucky to be an American, to forget my proximity to all of it. It's just an amazing time to be alive. And we're really sending you guys all the best out in California. I can promise you, Donald Trump showed up there and he has not forgotten you. And you'll certainly see a lot of movement thanks to him. So, Jill and Xavier, thank you both for being here. To everybody at home, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and follow. And we'll see you back here next time for more of The Right View.
And I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out.
Nothing is worse than being on a phone call that drops. Nothing is worse than trying to text someone and you can't reach them because your phone is out of service range. And nothing is worse than supporting these major corporations and companies who don't support us. That is why I love Patriot Mobile. They are America's only Christian conservative wireless network. They use every cell tower out there available to all networks so that they have the greatest 4G and 5G coverage nationwide, and they support the causes that are important to us as conservatives. If you go today to patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump and use the promo code Trump, you will get free activation today. Again, that is patriotmobile.com/Lara Trump. The promo code is Trump for free activation so that you can get a great cell plan and feel good about doing it.